Welcome to the next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
It is May 6th. That's right, the day after Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo on a Taco Tuesday. I hope you guys capitalized on that. That has to be some type of rare event, I would imagine. Who knows? But anyways, it's Wednesday night, which means it's Operation Gladio night. What happened to Libya? This is going to be a good conversation, especially because there was a little twist that happened before the show. And I don't think you guys will pick up on it, but we'll see. Doing something a little bit new, folks. So as the Rumble rants come in and the Super Chats, I'll address those throughout the show just to kind of get a feel of what that looks like, because I know not everybody can stay to the end. We'll see. I'm giving it a shot this week. You know, something you guys all request, and I'll see if it works. But before we come back to chapter 95 of Operation Gladio and episode 547 of the AlphaWarrior Show, do me a solid. Smash the thumb, hit the heart, share this out. Let's get a good audience, and we'll come back on the other end of these commercials.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, My Pillow mattresses and My Pillow mattress toppers, as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
Absolutely free. And of course, we're going to give some love to Rumble, because Rumble's the one that gave us a voice when everybody else tried to silence us, folks. Quick question. How much control do you actually have over your money right now? Technology has changed everything, and now it's changing how money works. Crypto started as a niche, but now it's going mainstream. Faster payments, more control, fewer middlemen. This isn't hype. It's just where things are going. And getting started today, it's easier than you think. That's where Rumble Wallet comes in. With Rumble Wallet, you can buy Bitcoin, hold dollar-backed stable coins, even own digital gold backed by real gold, all in one place. Setup is simple. It connects with MoonPay, so all you get to do is use your credit card, debit card, or bank account, and you can be up and running in just a few minutes. Start small, $10, $50, $100. It's not about the amount. It's about getting in early and understanding what's coming next. And once you're set up, you can even tip your favorite Rumble creators like me directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code that you see on the screen, or click the link that's down in the description and download the Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game. Take control of your money. Get started with Rumble Wallet today. And if you are one of those ones that's just here and says, I don't see something on my screen, it's because you're not watching on Rumble, and that QR code is over there. But you can go over there later and you will see it populate in the description. So with that, folks, let me welcome Colonel Towner to the show. Colonel.
Hi.
I know you've had a pretty adventurous day, to say the least. You want to give my people some insights for those that don't know?
Sure. And I'll preface this entire show by saying I'm a little squirrely. I didn't have my second cup of coffee today, so I'm just out there today. Just before the show, and luckily I left the tabs open because I normally do that, which drives my kids crazy because I've got like 20 of them open on my Brave browser. But luckily I left them open. I had done a whole bunch of research. This is kind of a carryover from the show we were doing about Lebanon and how embedded the MI6 people, because I really want people to understand this is not just a CIA operation. The sister intelligence agencies are embedded in this. And I wanted to go into a little bit of depth about MI6 and how all of what they do mirrors what the CIA that we've spent the last, 94 chapters describing. So everybody understands this is a whole of intelligence agencies effort. That just 5 seconds before I logged on, my entire note page disappeared. So I'm going to wing it. Having said that, probably today is not the best day to be winging anything because I had my first appearance on Alex Jones' show today. And for all of you people that will comment, oh my God, I can't believe you went on his show. Fuck off. That's all I got to say to you. It's not about your feelings. I don't really care about your feelings. I'm not here for your feelings. I'm not here for my feelings. I'm here to get the word out about Operation Gladio. And anybody that wants to invite me that's not like a child pedophile or one of these assassins, I'll go on their program. I don't care who they are. Because I know this stuff well enough to be able to talk about it with anybody and hold my own. And so I loved it. He was very nice, very respectful. And people were amazed at, oh my God, he just like gave her the floor and let her have a dialogue or a monologue. And so I enjoyed it. He's obviously very intelligent. He's in. What was really interesting, and I was sharing this with Alpha before the show, is the dynamic that was going on, because obviously it's my first time ever interacting with him one-on-one. And he has done a lot of the research into all of the, what I referred to as silos of this operation. But I'm not sure that he had the entire picture and how far back it went. So he did know a lot about it. And of course, his extensive, you cannot research Waco and not find an Alex Jones video. You just can't. He was all over it. He did not know that Wesley Clark was Fort Hood's commander at the time, who then goes on to be the NATO commander. And I had made that point after I established the gravity of the role that NATO played in this by bringing up Lyman Lemonsker and him writing Operation Northwood and being present at Operation Sunrise, which was the meeting with Alan Dulles and General Wolfe that basically created Operation Gladio under the auspices of the CIA while he was still in the OSS. So you could just tell there were light bulbs going on. And because he has interviewed so many interesting people over the years, it clicked a lot faster for him. And it was a very enjoyable interview. I was originally slated for an hour. I stayed an hour and almost a half, an hour and 20 minutes or so. He held me over the 1 hour break, which is always a good sign. He was obviously very interested in the information. So it was awesome.
Well, aside from the fact that she almost made me choke on my drink because I was not ready for that. Always be ready. 100% support your decision. Listen, I think Nick Fuentes is a damn tool. I would go on his show and talk about the content that I have. I give 2 cents. There's an audience, and that may be the only opportunity that audience ever gets to hear a certain perspective. You should always capitalize on it. It's literally like if you think kinetic war, it's like you have frontline versus frontline, and one of the colonels on the other side's like, come over on our side of the front lines where no one's going to take shots at you, and you could just start shooting at 360. Like, who would say no to that? Be like, yeah, okay, I'll go over there and put all this information. 100% agree with you on that, and I hope people are receptive to it. I think the part that is pretty awesome is that he just let you go, and that if anybody's watched Alex Jones long enough, it doesn't take very long, but he's like, and he interjects something, right? And for him to just let you go, that's a big deal, because that means the audience got to maintain like whatever the delivery you were putting out there. They got that uninterrupted, and that is significant. I think so, at least.
So ironically enough, the whole divine intervention always interplays with all of this. The second break, the song they picked was Danger Zone from Top Gun. For our audience knows it's the only flipping movie I've ever watched like 50 times. And my daughter is in her office with all of her office mates watching. There's like 10, 15 people in her office watching the entire episode. And she texts me like, oh my God, they played Top Gun. So it just was a very, it was a wonderful experience. And I sent a text to the scheduler and said, kudos to the sound man. He has no idea what he did.
Well, I'm super stoked. I can't wait to watch it. I suggest everybody go and watch it today and share it. So right out of the gate, just want to say welcome to Karen over there on YouTube, who just joined the AlphaWarrior family on YouTube. Thank you for that support. And shout out Breadmaker62 over there on Rumble, dropping a $20 Rumble rant and says, love, love, love our Colonel. She always takes us on a short trip to crazy with incredible facts. Semper Fortis. Colonel, what happened to Libya?
So, as far as the news in America, after the overthrow of Libya, have you heard much about anything that's happened other than it turned into a hot mess with slave markets and all that other stuff? Have you heard anything else about Libya?
Have not.
So shout out to Kit Clarenberg. He writes for a variety of different news organizations, generally focused in the UK. And he does say some things that I don't necessarily opinion-wise agree with him. I don't always agree with his conclusion, but our audience knows that I do not just consume information that I agree with. That's not how you form an opinion. And I do want to give AlphaWarrior a shout out here. I have obviously several trusted people that I value their opinion. You guys know that I'm on Tommy's podcast a lot. And I know Tommy has interacted with Alex Jones. And so I contacted Alpha. He was the first person that I contacted and asked his opinion. I asked Tommy's opinion because I know that he had conversed with him in the past. And I also asked Joni and General Quast, who I also hold in high regard. And took their input and all three of them collectively said, you have to do it. And so thank you, Alpha, for being there for me. You always are. And I just wanted to put that out there. So back to Libya. Again, when you read people's material, look for the facts. Nothing Kit ever publishes is based on anonymous sources. It's always very well sourced, and I do the homework to make sure I fully understand what the concept is that he's trying to present. And that's what I had done with all of my notes. I kind of combined all 5 articles. So one of them is kind of the guts of the material. So we're just going to go with that since my notes are gone. So I was unaware that prior to Gaddafi nationalizing the oil, that it was in fact BP that had the concession in Libya back in the day. So much like Exxon in Venezuela, when they nationalized, Chevron stayed on, Exxon exited Venezuela. So BP was not given an option to stay on. They were basically kicked out of the country. And that was a very wise choice of Gaddafi at the time, because he turned Libya into the showcase of Africa. The standard of living in Libya exceeded Italy and the UK, by the way, as far as the wealth that the people had. They had free electricity, that he had just finished this big water project, because water obviously is an issue. And they had education, and Libya was thriving. And again, if you guys understand the whole background of Operation Gladio, is especially for Africa, no government was ever allowed to be a stable government without the control of the West, because the whole myth of one world government is to use Africa as a slave colony. And the justification for doing that is because they can't run anything. They're not smart enough. They can't manage a country. And so having Libya in Africa thriving and exceeding the wealth of European countries was, in their religion, amoral. It was not ever going to be allowed to stand as a country. And that's how evil these people are. They have made a decision of what Africa is going to be, and they'll be damned that it's not going to be that, regardless of how many people die. They don't care. And so Libya becomes basically the prototype of this entire mentality of this religious cult towards one world government. So, that being said, the company that we spent a little bit of time on in our previous talking about Lebanon was Torchlight. And Torchlight is a company that, to say that it's a proprietary company of the UK government's probably technically not correct, but in theory, it's absolutely valid. It operates basically the way the paramilitary piece of the British East and West Indies Company did. It goes in and structurally integrates or infiltrates the civil service of the country. It's literally like the Milner Group did South Africa back in the day, like in early 1900s. They craft a civil service that is beholding to them. They infiltrate the intelligence, they infiltrate the military. And that's exactly what they did in Lebanon. And so the Torchlight company was hired on tens of millions of dollars of contracts because they thought after they assassinated Gaddafi, they were going to waltz right in, stand up their new infiltrated government, because they'd been working on Libya for a long time, and just start marching down the road with concessions to the oil. That didn't work out that way, because it turned into a hot mess. But you find people in the British government, like the Foreign Secretary William Hague, who immediately after the overthrow of the Gaddafi government went to the UN and demanded that the arms restrictions into Tripoli be lifted so they could immediately start selling weapons to the Libyans that they had picked that was going to be the successor to the government. Unfortunately, the people that they had selected to be the incoming government did not have the support of the people, And a lot of the factions that was unleashed that Gaddafi kept in check challenged the designated people that the British had been working for. And that's what we saw in the aftermath, is basically a civil war between these different factions. They did not want, especially the pro-Gaddafi people, they did not want a British puppet government in Libya. And they were willing to die to make sure that didn't happen. And a lot of them did die to make sure that didn't happen immediately. And then, of course, you have the aftermath of, you know, the slave markets and all that other stuff. So not very long after they go to the UN to lift the arms restriction, a junior defense minister by the name of Gerald Howard was quoted as saying, "We liberated Libya from a tyrant. Frankly, I want to see the UK business benefit from the liberation we've given to their people." So they're admitting that they were responsible for the overthrow of the government. And they're admitting that they did it for money. They want to get their old concession back, and they want to sell arms to it. And this falls right in line with everything that we have talked about. And so obviously BP is the beneficiary that he's talking about. And of course, BP pays lots of money to the British politicians. And, you know, it's just like Exxon and everything here. So there's all of the kickbacks and all that other stuff that goes on. But to have someone actually admit that in public is just incredible to me. Okay, so basically, Kit goes on and talking about the thawing of relations between Britain and Libya, and that Tripoli's security services were regularly used by the CIA and MI6 to torture terror suspects under the auspices of extraordinary rendition. And this was actually discussed with Tony Blair and Gaddafi in a meeting in 2007. So Tony Blair gets up in front of everybody and basically says that his country has radically transformed Libya. And I would have to agree with him, but not in the way he means it. So when he said that, the guy standing next to him was Peter Sutherland, and he was the BP chairman. So that, again, it's just dumbfounding. And of course, we in America don't know this because we don't know those people as well as we know our own CEOs and government. And so for most of the people in America, these kind of little subtle things go without any notice at all. So let's see. Blair also announced that the company would return to Tripoli after 3 decades after Gaddafi went to war with the European and U.S. energy giants active in the country at the time that their resources was expropriated, i.e. nationalized. And so they're making a big deal of basically going back in and exploiting an African country. And Libya did this in record time as far as achieving the goals that Gaddafi had set out. By 1980, the per capita income in Libya exceeded Britain and Italy. Think about that for a minute. Modern European countries and Gaddafi had set up an economy that created per capita income greater than the populations in Italy or the UK. That's crazy. So obviously, Sutherland is looking ahead to making billions for BP, but the sectarian violence breaks out. And it wasn't until May of 2012 that the BP went back into the country. But within a few short weeks being there's so much chaos, and there's so many militias and warlords battling, that they basically had to hit the road. There were assassinations. They were bombing embassies, and the civilians that were being killed in the street was just crazy. They had a terrorist group there called the Daesh, Daesh, that had basically taken over large swaths of Libya in just that one short year. So they basically have to put on hold what they're planning to do. But that doesn't mean that they don't stop the covert stuff. So British intelligence covertly intervened in all of this bloody mess going on to try to expedite the rearrival of BP. And they had all kinds of operatives on the ground. And that's where this Torchlight company comes in. There were, I mentioned in our Lebanon couple of shows, that there were leaked documents from British intelligence that illustrated them running several different programs that was used to do all kinds of things. And when I was looking at Torchlight, I didn't realize how big it was. They have had these types of operations in over 70 countries. They were in Iraq after 2003. They set up the entire military professional education system in Iraq. They obviously suck at it, but they actually had the contract from the UK government. And I also didn't know that the UK has a thing called UK AID, just like we have US AID. They have the exact same thing that does the exact same thing as our US AID. And Torchlight not only had UK AID contracts, they had US AID contracts. So they also had State Department contracts.
Jesus.
So that was very eye-opening to me. They also, Kit also exposed in a different article about how the company trains and sets up what he referred to as repressive security forces. And this again goes in line with everything that we've learned. The CIA goes into like Iran after 1953 and sets up the Savak. And they went into Chile and set up the DINA. Torchlight does exactly that same thing. They're just a cutout for MI6. And we mentioned in that previous session about Lebanon, this thing called the JTRIG. Basically, they use that entity out of the GCHQ to infiltrate intelligence agencies. They've been very active in West Asia. And I'm not surprised by this because I think Jordan is a satellite of the UK, but they are deeply embedded in every aspect of Jordan's government, like every aspect. Their intelligence services, their national police, they train them how to scoop up dissidents. They basically teach them how to use cyber security, how to use social media to trap people. It's like big government. They go in and teach countries big government.
And just to make sure that the audience is tracking here of who these people are and why these company names matter so much and why I bring some of these things on the screen while the Colonel's teaching us about this, is when we talk about the they, we're battling them. Who's them? Who's the they? These are the roots of the they, them of today.
Yes.
So just understand that, folks. Please. I didn't want to interrupt, Colonel. I just want to make sure.
No, that's a great point, because that's the piece that most people, and I even made that on Alex Jones' show today. So they're looking to Trump to do all of this stuff without ever realizing how big this fucking octopus is. This is not just the CIA. It is not just the FBI. It is not just the State Department. This monster is worldwide. It's embedded in every government around the world. They've been at this for over 100 years. This is Trump against all of them. It isn't going to happen overnight. People need to stop it. It's just crazy. And that's the reason why I wanted to take these few weeks to expose. UK probably has, and then probably after the UK, Mossad, as far as the extensive network that they have. But it's critical people understand how big this monster is.
And if you thought oil was important back then, it's so much more important right now because we are in an energy race. And so when you see what happened with Venezuela, you see what happened with the Strait of Hormuz and what's going on with Iran, and you're talking about Saudi Arabia opening up this pipeline that runs into the Red Sea that they've had for, over 3 decades. Remember these oil companies that you're hearing about now, different logos, different CEOs at the same entities. So this is who Trump is battling right now, like the Colonel said. Like, this is right now in real time. This is who he's fighting. When you see, and I'll tell people, go and check this. I think I might have mentioned it on the last Gladio. I've said it on a few shows now. When you go to the devil's Google and you look at the price of oil per barrel, it's going to give you a dollar amount. I'll just throw out $90. And typically, that's not necessarily the price you actually pay for that barrel. So let's say a company comes in and says, I want 1,000 barrels, and they do the math to get it on the trucks, from the docks onto the ship and all that. Then it comes out that $90, all of a sudden it's $93, or maybe it's $98 a barrel, $8 being on the high end. But there's always been a fluctuation between like 3 to 5 on average, 8 on a high end. That's what it's always been. Right now, you're looking at anywhere from a $30 to almost $40 difference on the actual price that's being paid for the price of a barrel. And the one thing that a lot of the yoo-hoos that have been doing this for decades are talking about, this has never happened and it's not sustainable. And you're damn right. Trump is operating outside of whatever this formula is. He's operating outside of it. And if you watch some of the shows that I've done with Josh and Ghost as well, you've seen that he's forcing a free market environment in this oil. Like, he's forcing them. And now it's just like, okay, well, if you're leaving OPEC and all of a sudden you think you're going to make this money, well, no, we're going to lower our price, which is, yeah. And so this craziness is all happening right now. And this is the shadow people in the shadow war. And so when I hear you talk about these oil companies, especially with BP and how much they've been tied into everything, it's just, Gladio glasses on, folks. Like, that's how you should see it.
And to your point, the piece that I want everybody to come away from this session tonight, understand what these people did to Libya. They took a country that had a per capita income that exceeded several European countries, not just Italy and UK. Those were just his 2 examples. They were willing to turn that country back 100 years into a fucking slave market so they could get the fucking oil. Okay? That's what these people, that's who Trump is dealing with. There is 0 F's given about these people when it comes to how diabolical they are. And that's the piece. You're not dealing with normal, rational people. They will destroy an entire country and turn it into 100 years ago slave market so they can stick their stick into the ground and pump out oil. That's how demented these people are. And if you don't understand that, you're not going to understand a single thing Trump is doing. Nothing. Okay. I told you I was going to be a little cagey today.
I like it.
So Torchlight's Tripoli operations were conducted under the name of, guess, stability. How stable is Libya right now? It's like this entire book that we're going through right now, Save for Democracy. They never left a single democracy anywhere. They turned everything into a hellhole with a military dictator. So that's the play on words. Understand that MI6 in the UK is a mirror image of the CIA, just so everybody understands that. They have their own oligarchs, they have their own intelligence thing, and they are doing the exact same thing as the CIA is doing here with the oligarchs that they work for. And that's critically important for the global stage, because every country has an intelligence agency that was created under the same footprint as MI6 and the CIA. They were all in bed together. Oil is the lifeline connection to all of them, which is why this is critically important. All right. So one of the leaked documents that Kit got was dated March 2018. And it stated, and this is a quote, "Commitment to playing a leading role in ensuring Libya's transition to a stable country remains high." You can't make this shit up. They had a stable country. You just weren't in it. There's nothing about what you did that had any desire at all to create a stable country at all. You destroyed a country and turned it into a hellhole. So the Foreign Office then comes back to that memo and says they had constructed a coherent package of support aimed at stabilizing and reconstructing Libya. Well, you know what? If you hadn't torn it apart, it wouldn't need to be reconstructed. And their person that they were going to contract to do that was Torchlight. And their main concern at the time was establishing new interventions on the economy and the local governance. In other words, set up a government that's friendly to the West and allow us to exploit your oil. So immediately they go to work on creating a counterterrorism program that didn't need to be there because there weren't any terrorists, because Gaddafi had gotten control of over all of them until you decided that you didn't want him there anymore. It also said that they were going to conduct 3 complex attacks on Tripoli against critical government infrastructure in 2018. One of this one terrorist organization that many people speculate was financed by the UK. One of their targets was going to be the national oil headquarters with all of the people that had run it outside of BP. So, get rid of the competition so we can come in and then rebuild and have our own stuff there. So there's more communication that goes back talking about how weak their security forces are. We're going to have to do something about that. So Torchlight sends a whole team in and they penetrate Libya's internal security service. They also infiltrated the criminal investigation department because, we don't want any of our secrets coming out. So we've got to control that. And they also started inserting people into the Attorney General's office in Libya. So that allowed them to gather up terrorist suspects, torture them, and under the guise of investigation, prosecute and detain them, because now they control via infiltration. And what I am describing to you should look very familiar. Because if you go back into the United States, what did these operatives do in the United States? They infiltrated the FBI. They infiltrated the local DA's office. They infiltrated the court systems. And they were running rampant throughout the DOJ. I am showing you the model that they are doing to Libya because it was done here. This is exactly what they did here. Using the George Soros Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, USAID. They have infiltrated our government at every level. This is exactly how they do foreign country operations. So,
I do have a Rumble rant that came in for you.
Go ahead.
This comes from Flo. We like Flo. Says, I probably shouldn't ask this, but why is McGregor so upset about your message? I'm assuming that he's probably referencing maybe what he saw of you on Alexis Jones' show, Flo. I'm assuming that if you're talking about me, it's probably because I've been calling him out because he's literally been wrong about everything in the Middle East. If you recall, a few weeks ago, he said our Navy was going to get destroyed. If you recall, he says that we're taking over 1,000 like he literally everything that he's called has been wrong. So Flo, if that's why, if he's mad at my message, it's probably because I used to like him and he, my opinion is he's gone to the dark side and he's gone full Tucker Carlson style. He does expose a lot of stuff with Israel on that, and hat tip to him on that because a lot of that stuff we agree on. But he's also gone too far to the extreme, saying that we were getting our asses kicked, which that was not the case. So, but I think he was probably referencing maybe he saw you talking about Gladio and Alex Jones, and he's probably like, ah.
Yeah. He's a very interesting person. There's always been something. I've paid close attention to him and listened to what he said. There's something very off-putting about him. There's something, and I don't know if it's the way he delivered. There's something not genuine about what he's saying. It's just kind of that sixth sense that I have when I listen to people talk. There's something very there that is unspoken. And I've not come to the conclusion that he's pursuing a particular agenda. But that's probably the easiest way to, it's like you have those spidey senses. My spidey senses has always been activated anytime I listen to him talk. I can't put my finger on it, but definitely bears watching.
Yep.
I've just been so and it's probably something that I should clarify. A little inside baseball at the colonel level in the military. Obviously, having spent a lot of time in that world, when you're a major or lieutenant colonel and you're sitting in a staff meeting that, because I'm in the peanut gallery as an executive officer, and I'm watching colonels interact with general officers. They interact in a completely different way than when you're in their office and they're, talking to the people that work for them or whatever. That's kind of one of the fun things about being an executive officer for a general. You kind of follow them around. I was a major. And you watch how these people, they like almost at the point of groveling to a general officer. And then you watch them in a completely different setting, and they're very, very different. And again, because I grew up as an enlisted troop, I'm looking at them going, you're fake as hell.
Yeah.
You're fake as hell. And you guys know I'm like no nonsense kind of person. I just say it like it is. And so one day, I had two different general officers during the time that I was an exec at the Pentagon. And the second guy I got, he's one of those very prim and proper. The other guy was, he turned out to be a lunatic, but whatever. He was very nice. He was from the South, and I got along with him really well. The other guy was from the Northeast, and he was very professor-like. But I had a great rapport with him. And one day I came into his office and one of these fake colonels said had just been in his office and he was complaining about him. And I looked at the general that I worked for, and I said, he's a knucklehead. And he looked at me and he goes, "You're a major. You can't be calling a colonel a knucklehead." And I said, "Sir, you really need to be concerned if I can call him a knothead." I said, "A knucklehead is a guy that just occasionally screws up. A knothead is an unredeemable asshole." And he just started laughing and he goes, "Okay, noted." I said, "He's just a knucklehead. That's not that bad."
You can survive that.
But that's kind of who I am as a person. And it's not for everybody, you know, and I did offend people. I didn't care. It's just who I am. It's the way I operate. And so that's why I view people that are in the military a lot differently. I have a much better read on people like that when they don't come across very genuine, because I've had so much inside baseball. And it gets even more interesting. These were all Air Force people when I was at the Pentagon for the most part. When I went to CENTCOM, I'm telling you, the difference between Marine colonels and Army colonels, like night and day. You could say, even as a major, I pinned on lieutenant colonel there, but as a junior officer, you could say anything you wanted to a Marine colonel, anything. And an Army colonel, they would have blown their freaking brain out. They're so fake. They are so pomp and circumstance about literally everything. Who has, if you're a colonel in the Army, you have to have an executive officer by designation, not by actual job. And somebody has to have that title. And I'm like, what do you even do? And the senior Army lieutenant colonel in our group where I worked had that designation. And he was bragging about it one day. And I just looked at him and I'm like, what do you even do? What does that mean? And he's like, well, I get to maintain this detail roster. And I said, so you're a secretary? Why don't you just call yourself a secretary? So
people will not understand how fluid things shift. You get a bunch of Marines stateside in the rear, and it could be a butter bar or not, at attention. The respect is there, not a word is uttered. You put us in a combat environment where we're not actually in the vicinity of rounds flying everywhere, but, you know, in the rear, so to speak, and the butter bar starts chopping out orders. Everybody looks at the first sergeant like, okay, that's cool. What are we really doing? and it's like, you know, it's just this different environment. The knowing when, you know, probably the best advice, and I want to say this before I forget, it came from a staff sergeant, and he probably is not the original person of it, but it's who I heard it from. And it stuck with me from a kid to today. This still is one of my warrior ethos. And he goes, men will follow rank, but they'll die for a leader.
Correct.
And that is something, Colonel, that's never left my mindset ever, because I knew what that meant. I was a kid, you know, 20 years old, 21 years old, you're a kid. And it's always been that way.
Yeah. Okay. Back to the story. No, that's great. I love that. And it's absolutely true. And there's a lot of people with rank that are not leaders. A lot of people, especially in the Army. We'll just leave that there. So Torchlight was tasked by the UK MI6 to build a capacity where the legal service, the police, and all of those were basically working collectively together and this is an actual quote from the leaked documents, build the capacity while reinforcing the close working relationship between them to support a shift from the confession-based to evidence-based prosecution. So in other words, their torchlight is to go in there and basically try to arrange prosecution of people. And they realize how shaky ground they are on torture confessions. So they really needed to look around for evidence to put in these packages. Torchlight would clandestinely teach Libyan security forces the UK way of counter-terror investigations. This included covert forensic analysis, using communication, using digital assets, social media, and all media, and the use of special investigative techniques, which most people interpreted as torture, and then also use human intelligence, surveillance, intercept, covert searching, tracking, digital tracking, and participation in what, this is an actual quote, prison intelligence. So this is the system that the UK was setting up inside of Libya after the coup. So they also were obviously developing intelligence leads, and they taught them subject handling, and they interview techniques, basically interrogation. So then they had another team that trained the prosecutors how to use the information that they had gleaned in that first part. And then they also were training all the judges on how to use that information that they had gotten from these techniques that they were teaching them. They set up a senior investigative group to control all of this in Libya. It comprised intelligence agencies, police, and prosecutors. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah,
Isn't that what they did to January 6th?
100%.
Uh-huh.
Especially, I don't know if you had a chance to see that interview between Hannity and Cash on that. And if you guys haven't seen that interview, watch that interview. He specifically talks about the undercovers that were there, and that they were forced to go work there. Now, granted, that's where you got to have exactly a backbone. That's when you say no, like, or you're insubordinate. You're giving me an unlawful order, so fire me and I'll have my lawsuit. We'll go that route. But too many were weak.
Way too many were weak. You cannot be forced to do something illegal.
100% agree with you.
I spent 30 years. They tried to coerce me to do something illegal. And I told my boss, you could fire me right now. I'm not doing it. And I didn't do it. So yeah, they medically retired me anyway, but I'm not going to do anything illegal. Shoot me. I don't care. Yeah. So you cannot be forced to do something illegal. That's bullshit. Okay. So they're going to use intelligence agency, police, and prosecutors, while the country, was basically forced into joint investigative leadership roles, mirroring the Britain's executive liaison group. And that's a very interesting subject for another day. But basically, this is what the UK is doing right now to their own citizens. When you come in and you identify somebody that's a rapist or a knifing thing, it's what they're doing to their own citizens domestically. And so this just mirrors what's happening here. that what we were doing to Americans that were going to parent school board meetings, the Catholics that were arrested for standing on a public. This is literally what was happening in America, what I'm describing here. And this is a foreign country going into Libya, setting up the same infrastructure that has been set up in the United States. And that's what I felt so compelling about this entire story, is the whole time that I'm doing all this research, I'm like, son of a bitch, that's what they did to us. Oh my God, that's what they did here. And I just want to highlight that because I think it's imperative that we're not alone in this and how big it actually is. They've done this in so many other countries. They're literally embedded in the governments. Okay. So in the leaked submissions to the UK Foreign Office, Torchlight outlined in some detail how it was ideally placed to train Libyan police and security and intelligence services to identify, and they actually use this word, neutralize individuals and groups who posed a threat.
They did that here too.
They did that here too. So the firm, Torchlight, boasted about its extensive experience in 70 different countries that they have done this exact same thing in. That's their number. That's Torchlight's number. In their submission to the UK government to get this contract to do it in Libya, they actually said they had done this exact same thing in 70 separate countries. Torchlight had already carried out several clandestine British bankrolled projects in the preceding years, training Tripoli's criminal investigators and prosecutors. This particular grant was significant contextual knowledge of the operating environment that they added. That's the justification for their contract. You can't hire anybody but us because we're already there. They called it long-term mentoring efforts because they had established a personal rapport between Torchlight operatives and individuals in positions of significant power and influence in their internal security service, which is basically like the FBI, criminal investigations department, and the Attorney General's office, which basically means they already own it. So you can only pick us to do this. So they put in their comments that it could be exploited to secure buy-in for London's secret counterterrorism development program at targeted agencies in Libya. They further bragged about having assembled a highly competent and experienced delivery team and exceeds the requirements set out for the delivery. So just to be clear, if you go research Torchlight, lots of MI5 people in there, lots of MI6 people in there, former military people in there from the UK military. And they worked hand in hand with the CIA, the FBI, and USAID here in the United States. They gave an example. A 30-year senior police veteran assigned to the initiative and already had trained the intelligence people in Libya and, quote, IT systems and competency, cybersecurity, fundamentals of intelligence and analysis, utilization of covert human intelligence sources, open source intelligence, data management, databasing, indexing, social media intelligence, phone data analysis, and more. Isn't that exactly what they did here? Covert intelligence sources.
They even blew up a AT&T center and would call it some crazy dude in an RV. Just saying.
Yeah, that's not even counting that. But every one of those things is what they did to the January 6th people. Data management, databasing, indexing, social media intelligence, phone data analysis, and covert human intelligence sources. Some of which are not so covert anymore, like Ray Epps and what's his face.
And then they would go and tell the courts, oops, we made a mistake. There was no confidential informant, in order to protect the confidential informant.
Yeah. All of these people were given at Torchlight, were given enhanced security clearance, which allowed them to interact with all MI6 personnel and other senior executives in the British government. One of the people working at Torchlight was the program senior political economic advisor for Torchlight. He had been the British ambassador to Libya in 2015 to 18. And then he walks right across the street to Torchlight to go back to Libya. So they have the exact same system set up there that we have here. Because how many times have we talked about ambassadors basically coming from the CIA? We've had a number of them. I mean, William Pawley was an ambassador.
It's one of the first positions you should look at.
Yes.
If you want to track them down.
Yes. And because they move them around from coup to coup in geographical regions. But this is where it gets really interesting. Talking about this British ambassador, his name's Peter Millett, Millett. His time in the post meant that he participated in personal relationships with multiple senior government officials in Tripoli, which he leveraged to secure the extradition to London of Hashim Abedi, brother of the Manchester Arena bomber Salman Abedi. Hashim was subsequently convicted of 22 charges of murder and allegedly helping his brother source material for the May 2017 attack. The official inquiry into the mass casualty bombing blamed the Abedi's father, Ramadan, a member of the Al-Qaeda affiliate MI6 sponsored Libya Islamic Fighting Group. So an MI6 operative trained in Libya carried out a domestic bombing in the UK. Sound familiar?
Yep.
And then the ambassador, who knows all of this, helps in extraditing the guy to the UK so he can go to jail after he was radicalized by his father, who was hired by MI6. You just can't make this shit up. And of course, these guys didn't speak English, so they had to have an interpreter, so nobody knows what they said. How convenient. So during this inquiry, there basically it included a highly incriminating communication from March of 2004 sent to and from MI6, then counter-terror group, Mark Allen and his counterpart in Tripoli, regarding the kidnapping and subsequent torture of terror suspect Abdel Hakim Beljah and his pregnant wife.
Nothing's off limits.
Nothing. Not long after those messages were exchanged, Allen retired, and guess where he went to work? BP.
Shocker.
Working on regaining the leases in Libya. It's crazy.
And the way we're talking about BP here, folks, think about Chevron as well.
Probably Exxon is a better example than Chevron. Chevron is the one that stayed in Venezuela. they didn't. They had no problem with them nationalizing They stayed on. Exxon is the one that had the knives out for Venezuela. They're the ones that sued them. They're the ones that stole all of the Citgo under that fake regime of Juan Guaido. Exxon was like knives out, which I found very interesting because of what was the guy's name? Rex, whatever. He was the first secretary of Tillerson. Yeah, he was from Exxon. So were we gathering information on him and who he talked to while he was Secretary of State during Trump's first administration?
I didn't know he was from Exxon. I remember Rex Tillerson.
Yes. So in May of 2015, 6 months after resigning as MI6 chief, John Sawyers, S-A-W-E-R-S, MI6 chief, he goes to work for BP too. So is there any difference between BP and MI6?
Doesn't sound like it. How do you spell his last name again? Sawyers?
S-A-W-E-R-S. And what's very interesting about that is in the UK, BP is above reproach. You're not allowed. You don't hear any of the UK media ever talking bad about BP, ever. So, there was a report that is basically an expose about testimony of a former senior BP staffer that was in charge of securing contracts in Azerbaijan in the immediate aftermath of the collapse of the Soviet Union. In that report, it says millions were spent using company credit cards, get this, on champagne, narcotics, prostitutes, hosting parties for local government officials in Azerbaijan. They also claim that MI6 was aware of all of this and encouraged it, working closely with BP to win business and influence a political complexion of governments. That's actually their words. That's a quote. Influence the political complexion of the government in Azerbaijan by getting compromising information. And MI6 was well aware of it, and BP paid for it. Weirdly, huh?
I'll just say a quick note on John Sawyers. From 1995 to 1998, he was in the United States and spent a year as an international fellow at Harvard University, and later at the British Embassy in Washington, D.C., where he headed the foreign and defense policy team.
He's MI6. So, also...
They love Harvard.
Oh, yes, they do. But that's where he was probably there under the Kissinger, which is a CIA front. The institute that Kissinger set up at Harvard was actually revealed as a CIA front. The very next day after that story was printed, it was retracted. So that's it.
That's it is a very strong finish. Because the story being retracted.
Yes,
this is what these podcasts. This is a threat that these podcasts present to them, because you can't force us to retract. You can't force us to abide by their narratives. You can't tell us what we can and can't challenge when it comes to these things. And it is a threat to them. It's why they went full-blown censorship on some of these platforms that we're now back on, went full-blown censorship. I have the emails. You can't even appeal. You're just done. Because they had no other way of combating this information that was getting out there. And now you're seeing the boomerang just is coming back, and they're dealing with the repercussions of that. But
well, it's also the reason why you can run that one algorithm or that one thing on Grok, and Grok will tell you, like if I put my at Colonel Towner label, that somebody come up with this script. If you put that in Grok and put your account on there, it will run this analysis of your account. And every time Bridget runs it, or I've ran it a couple of times, it says how throttled my account is. It openly admits they're doing it.
It does. It tells you the key words that you're saying that you shouldn't talk about.
Yeah, it's well, originally, it told me that the use of international syndicate was a disguise for anti-Semitism. That literally said that. And so my response to Grok was, Grok, read any post I've ever made. I explain exactly what the international syndicate is. It's rich people, bankers, and lawyers. They're not all Jewish. You are the one being anti-Semitic. And immediately it came back going, no, you're right. You're very clear about that.
My bad.
Yeah.
Before we wrap this up and you let everybody know where to find you, and those that joined late, you can just kind of summarize where you were today so they can go and look for it. What comments can you just land on this guy real quick? And the only reason I say is because I anticipate an indictment coming down the chain here before this month is up on this gentleman right here. For those of you who don't know, senators, this is an article from back in 2013. Senators delay Brennan CIA vote over drone memos, Libya details. And this is where the kayfabe was going on. They were kind of going hard over him, and he stood by it, and he invited the controversy into it. But what's something you can share about this guy real quick, if any, with regards to Libya?
Brennan?
Yeah.
I don't know what this particular thing is about. I think Brennan had his fingers in Benghazi. I don't know what they're talking about, the drone memos. I
was just bringing it up just to show the photo of him. That's all.
Yeah. So I think if you go back and you look, John Brennan is the James Jesus Angleton of our time. The guy that's everywhere all the time. His name comes up so often in the last, 25 years of CIA operations that I've looked at. And he is the guy that was literally everywhere. And for the longest time, no one paid attention. And I think it was only in the aftermath of 9/11 that people, even years later, it wasn't in the immediate aftermath, realizing that he was the Saudi station chief at the time. He's the one that got those visas for all those people to come into the United States. And that's kind of like, if you go back to Operation Gladio, especially in the early days, Angleton was the Forrest Gump inside the CIA. He's everywhere doing all kinds of shit. And even after he supposedly retired, he didn't retire. He had an office in the CIA. They contracted him. He was there for years after he quote unquote retired, doing all kinds of shit. As a matter of fact, Ship, the guy that, what's his first name? It may be David, Kevin Ship, who wrote the book that talks about he basically is a whistleblower. The CIA tried to kill him and his family when he figured out that there was a backdoor capability to their covert agent system where foreign governments could access who actually were the CIA undercovers in their country. And he tried repeatedly at all levels of the government to include a meeting at the State Department to identify the security risk, and they persecuted this guy. They stationed him at that weapons depot out in San Antonio that was contaminated. All of his family got sick. His wife almost died. His kids almost died. He got gravely ill. And yeah, if you read his story, when he came back to the CIA, this was long after Angleton had retired. He got called to Angleton's office. He's like, I didn't even know the man was still in the building. He had a special office in the building in the middle of nowhere. And I mentioned this on Alex Jones show today. You remember me coming back from Montgomery Air Force Base, not Montgomery, Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama, and visiting the library there at Air War College and saying there was nothing in the library at all about Operation Gladio, and that the only thing that I could find was when we finally went to the periodicals, and they had a magazine article that was written in defense and diplomacy, and it would have been the March, April. There was an article about Operation Gladio, and the very next edition, Shackley, the other guy, writes the thing. What's that say? Debunking Gladio. He actually says in here that, yeah, that didn't happen.
Insane.
It was written in 1992, 2 years after Prime Minister Andreotti admitted not only that it was a thing, that all NATO countries was involved in it. Debunking Gladio.
NATO's toast, folks, if you're not aware of it. And the reason NATO is toast is because if you've watched a fraction of the 95 chapters of Operation Gladio, what you realize is Trump is taking on Operation Gladio.
Yes.
This is why he went after USAID. It's why he went after the National Endowment for Democracy. It's why he's been targeting the NGOs. It's why he's been exposing, certain NGOs like Catholic charities and Jewish Family Services. It's why Doge was showing the mechanism. It's all this.
It's why OPEC is being broken up, because that was their control mechanism.
It's why he had Bondi, when she was the AG, identify the cartels as foreign terrorist groups. All what Trump has been doing, he just hasn't said it yet, is Gladio is done before my presidency is over. That is what he's doing, folks.
And you guys know all about it because you've been with us all this time.
100%. Colonel, you hinted at it right now just a few moments ago. For those that joined late, let them know where you were today, and let them know where they can find you and what you got coming.
I was on the Alex Jones show at 1:00 today, Eastern time. I think I was the second hour of his show, and I was on for about an hour and 20 minutes talking about Operation Gladio. And actually got to talk about Operation Gladio.
Freaking awesome. Colonel, people that want to listen to you more than just Wednesday nights, where can they find you?
4:00, X Spaces and Rumble, every day, Monday through Friday. And I usually do a Tommy's podcast Saturday morning at 10:00, and it usually gets released around noon on Saturday. War Hamster and I do a regular show. It's not been so regular lately because he was not doing well for a long period of time because of some injuries. But he's back. Did you get to see him when he was in San Diego?
I did not. I did not.
So yeah, we had a conflict here too. I had already bought my plane tickets to go out there, but we had a conflict. So anyway, so we do a show at noon East Coast time on secret societies with lots of very interesting. We did Skull and Bones, we did Scroll and Key, and we've been going through some of the philosophers that led to the Fabian Society, the Milner Group, and we will very soon get to the Pilgrim Society, which is going to blow people's mind. People have no idea what that is. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it. I'm not dialed in it, but I have heard of it.
Yeah, you can think of it as the bridge. It was set up in the early 1900s, basically to recolonize the United States. And it has some very interesting people that we've seen in Gladio.
Interesting.
Yeah, like Henry Luce, the guy that was in charge of the media complex and was an ambassador in some really interesting places in our Gladio story. Henry Kissinger, Alexander Haig, all kinds of very familiar names. They're actually Pilgrim people. And when you understand that it was born out of an initiative by Cecil Rhodes and Balfour, the guy that created Israel, and the Milner Group, which was called Milner's Kindergarten. They're the ones that basically set up the colonization of South Africa. It starts making sense. They also basically set up the structure in Canada and Australia, New Zealand, the British Empire. And their goal was to bring the United States back under the control of the British Empire. And they did it through things like the Pilgrim Society and the CFR.
Folks, follow the Colonel and follow Warhamster.
He's awesome.
You want to talk about someone who's just brilliant? Follow Warhamster. You guys make sure you'll catch me tomorrow morning on Badlands Daily with CanCon. You'll catch me in the early part of the evening on SitRep, which is also on Badlands. And then you come back when you're done with Badlands over here to the AlphaWarrior Show, where you'll catch me and Josh on Overwatch on The Guardian. It's different content. If you haven't experienced it yet, it's our chance to kind of dive into different things like occultism and dreams and stuff like that. So it's kind of a break from this kind of, geopolitical stuff that's out there, but it's fun. And it's still educational. So make sure you guys tune into that. And again, shout out to Karen, who became a new AlphaWarrior member out there on YouTube. And then shout out to Flo and Breadmaker, who shared some love with the Rumble Rants. Colonel, as always, thank you for joining us. And that first link down in the description, folks, will take you to the Gladio store. Make sure you go out there. And for those that say, Alpha, why are you always so happy? How do you work so damn much? Because a pet club right here, okay? Because of these guys, we're going to close out with that ad, and I'll see you guys in the morning. Good night. God bless, and Semper Fi.